My name is Dean Gonzalez, Director of QA and Training for Dotcms. Welcome to the second of our webinars introducing some of the great new features in Dotcms version 2.3. Last week we had a webinar featuring the new template designer and themes. If you were not able to join us, that video is posted here on dotcms.com/resources/videos. The recording of this webinar today will be posted here as well later today, and we'll be sending out a link to everyone who registered for the webinar and to the Dotcms community. In today's webinar, which should be no more than about 30 minutes, maybe 40 at the most, we are focusing on the Time Machine, scheduled publishing, plus I'm going to show you the new Dotcms link checker and some tricks there, and the new navigation tooling that is included in Dotcms version 2.3 that Jason Smith touched on last week. Before we get started, I just wanted to remind everyone that the GoToMeeting control panel has an area where you can ask questions during the webinar, so if you could locate that now, and we'll have a QA session at the end of the webinar where I'll do my best to answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at how to view your website in both the past and the future using the Dotcms Time Machine. The first thing I'd like to point out on our documentation site, here each of the features I'm going to be discussing is well documented, and you can take a look at the documentation there in addition to watching this video, and take a look at how to take snapshots in the past and the future. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at how to take snapshots in the past of your site and keep them, archive them, save them on a nightly basis so that they can be used for a variety of things. They can be used for disaster recovery of some sort. You can also end up, we're talking about in the future being able to use the bundled snapshot of your site and possibly put that, push that to another server. So we've got, this is the very beginning of the Dotcms Time Machine. We've got plans for future development as well. So the first thing I'd like to do is take a look at taking a snapshot of your site in the past. So if we come over here to the site browser and we come down to Time Machine, this is where you'll find that new feature. So we're going to take a snapshot of the past, and then I'll talk to you about some limitations of taking a snapshot, what actually gets bundled up, where it gets bundled up. So you can see there is a past or future setting for your snapshot. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to Settings over here on the right hand side. After I click on Settings, I need to choose a host. So I'm just going to do demo.dotcms.com. This is running on my local machine. And I add him. I could include all hosts, but I'm just going to do this one guy so it doesn't take too long. So now after you choose a website and you choose the language, then here is the cron expression where you would set up how often you want this snapshot to be taken. So I'm going to choose this little cron expression to take a snapshot every day at 1 a.m. So then I'm going to choose the save and run now. Before I do that, I'm going to come over here to my log for my local guy. I'm just going to clear that so we can see him run, and I'm going to click save and run now, and we can see that this guy is starting to run. We'll come back to him in just a minute, but as we do that, I wanted to show you where he's getting built. So the second that we did that, here I've got this fresh checkout here of Dotcms, and if we take a look, this is where I've got my local instance installed inside the Dotcms. Inside Assets, you can see this Time Machine folder, and this is where my my object is being built, and the bundle is being built. So I'm taking this snapshot. He is right now getting all bundled up. Now, what kind of snapshot are we taking of the site, and what are the limitations of it? Well, if you take a snapshot, it is taking a flat view it is generating all of the HTML, but it is not dynamic. So if your site is very velocity driven and dynamic, you've got to take it into consideration that that velocity is not going to, you're not going to have a dynamic site that can react to clicks and then check something in velocity and then return. It is only static HTML page which are being bundled up. So that is a limitation to the Time Machine snapshot. But it can be very useful for disaster recovery. So if you need to bring back a site, you don't have you build your sites in a way that they don't have a lot of velocity, and you can simply point to a bundle. I'm going to show how to actually set up a little Apache server here locally and give an example of that and how we can actually hit this snapshot of this site. So I'm just taking a look, and it does say that the publisher has completed, and so I've got this Time Machine bundle. And if we go back to the Time Machine, we can see that this has been all bundled up here, and I've got my working and I've got my live, and then there's a little script that we're going to run to get this guy up and viewable from an Apache server, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. So now that I've got that snapshot, I'm going to just simply refresh the Time Machine, and after we do that, we will see that we have this previous snapshot. So not only can we now choose this snapshot that was just done, and then of course you can do snapshots in multiple languages, so you choose a language. We can now see this static view of this site and be able to click around this this static flat view of our site. And so I can go to About Us and preview what is in my snapshot. So if you wanted to even just take a historical look at your site and see what it looked like, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, 2 months ago, and check it for even your own, QA within your organization, see what was there, what's now missing, if something was changed, it's good for that. And you can look at it here on the back end and compare past and present. And also, like I said, have the static HTML there recorded and use it for a disaster recovery mechanism. So to show how to kind of do that on a server, what I'm going to do is now take this snapshot that I've created, and we're going to go ahead and set that up on Apache server. So to take a look here at my system preferences, and I go to sharing, and so I've already selected here on Mac OS, it has Apache, and we can just click web sharing, and you can see that my personal computer web address is 10.1.1.180. I have already gone into the command line over here. I've sudoed, sudo -i, and I've done a little echo test index.html so that I can see the make sure that my Apache server is working. So here I'm getting tests, so it looks like I'm ready to go and run a script that is right here. I'm going to show you an example. We do have, in addition to our documentation on the Time Machine, there is here in the code share site, there is a little snippet of code that you can use to publish a static copy of your site to an Apache server. So this is the exact code that I'm going to use, and the only thing that I'm going to change is the path to my local Time Machine bundle. And so that's the only thing I've changed. Otherwise, my Apache root is right here, Library Web Server Documents. This is where you're going to take this script. It's going to take my bundle and basically publish it, here on my Apache server. So stepping back to here, I'm going to now And then I'm just going to paste some code that I have here prepared in Evernote. And place that right here. And you can see that this is my path to my specific checkout right here on the top. Otherwise, the code is exactly the same. So now I'm just going to then save this. Okay. 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 So after he finishes running, now I will be able to then come back to hit my Safari server here, and I hit the same URL I hit before, and now I've got that static copy of the site that is pure flat HTML. Once again, if you build a site that is extremely velocity driven and dynamic, whenever you click on things that are dynamic, you know, that velocity code's not going to execute. So, but if you hit things like our team, you know, products, flat HTML pages that can be presented, now you've got a method for instantly switching to this static copy of your site and bringing it up instantly as a disaster recovery method, or just simply a way to take an eyeball back and see back in time what your site looked like at a specific time. So in addition to that, in addition to taking these snapshots that you, once again, cron job and set up to run as many times, you know, per night or per day as you wish, you can also take a look into the future on a site and schedule content to be published in the future. So just taking a look at that, there's a couple things that need to be set up to make that happen. So the first thing I want to take a look at is the structure that I've set up over here. Yeah. So whenever you leave this page in the time machine, the correct way to leave is, here I'm going to stay on this page. I will actually go back into my snapshot and show you the right way that you want to leave the shot is the snapshot and make sure that you have actually executed the time machine properly. There's, you know, it'll give you a little warning saying, hey, would you like to leave and close the snapshot, and it'll do it. To do future time machine, to enable content to actually publish in the future, how does that work? Now, we've already covered the past, we've already covered up bringing one of your time machine bundles up on Apache server, but what is this looking at your site in the future? What I've done is I've set up on the generic content structure, and you can do this on any structure, it's entirely optional, it is not a default way that .cms works. You can opt to do this. Here actually, yeah, I'm going to add these fields here. There are properties here on the generic content on any structure that you can set up. You can see that there is no publish date or expire date at all right now on the generic content structure. I'm using the generic content structure because that's already what's formatted to all of our containers on the starter site. Only if you actually configure the publish date and expire date field will you actually have the capacity to save a piece of content and have it automatically publish itself and unpublish itself at some future date. Right now, if I can create all the generic content I want and simply, you know, save and publish it because it's got the default workflow scheme. But I'm going to add a couple of fields, and you need to know that whenever you add a field that you're going to configure under that publish and expire property on the structure, they need to be date and time fields. So I'm going to create a new date and time field on the generic content structure. I'm going to put publish, I guess, make it required, sure, show and listing. And then I'm going to add another one to have it expire. So another date and time field, and we'll put expire. Okay. So I've got now a date and time field. I've got two of them. They are, set up so that they're formatted properly so that I can use. The only thing that this will actually pick up over here on the publish date field property on a structure, or the expire date field, they will pick up date and time fields only. It'll pick up all of them. You can see we're seeing both of them. Obviously, I'm going to choose the publish field. We could name it whatever we want. You don't have to name them publish or expire. You could say unpublish in the future, whatever you want. Obviously, publish and expire seem to make sense to me, so that's what I'm going to format to be my official publish date field and expire date field for the future on future scheduled content publishing. So I'm going to save that on the structure. Now the second I do that, I can come over here to Site Browser, and I want to actually place some content. I've already set up a Time Machine folder and an index page that we can hit. And we're just going to create some content and see how now adding content behaves just a little bit differently. So I'm going to click Add Content, New Content. And I've got some content here that I'm just going to copy and paste right here. And I'm going to copy this into the title. And so I've said this is today's relevant content, which expires on 8/31. So I'm going to, for publish date, I'm going to just set it for, I'll set it for yesterday, so we don't have a problem with the date and time field. That means, as long as I go ahead and set it prior to the current, time, it's not future, I can publish it. So I'm setting it yesterday to 10 a.m. This is, there's going to be no way that I'm choosing a forward time, past the current time. So it's going to auto-publish. And then I can choose never here, or I can, choose a date, which I said in the content title I'm going to do. So I'm going to choose August 31st and whatever time. That's fine. Okay, now I can save and publish. But I'm going to show you how. If you try to save and publish something that is set for the future, it's actually going to disallow it, because by those fields, and by those fields being actually configured on the structure, you're saying that you are going, if you set a future date, it's not for publishing right now. A future date is for publishing in the future. So now we're going to set a future piece of content that should publish. And let me actually step over to the structure so it's a little bit more visible, and let me change these fields just to be up at the top here. So I'll put the publish right underneath the title of the expire. Okay. So here we'll add new content. I'm going to paste that new content here. This one is going to publish on July 1st and expire at the end of July. So I'm going to put that into the title. And watch what happens. July 1st and expire whatever time, and expire the 31st. I'll take off the never. And July 31st, whenever. Now, if I try to publish this right now, it's actually going to generate an error that says that you can't publish something that you're trying to actually schedule for publishing in the future. So you should automatically save that content. So it is saved. If we look at, live, it is not live right now. It's just waiting there to be published in the future. And we'll do the same with another piece of content. Create new. And we'll set this other piece of content to publish on July 15th, and we'll kind of be able to see, you know, content appearing and not appearing based upon dates here in the future time machine. So I'm going to set this guy up for July 15th and expire on 8/31, the same as the other. And once again, I can't choose to save and publish. I'm going to have to hit save. Okay, so now we've got some content on this page. I did make sure that this folder had an index page was reachable from my time machine view here in my menu. So now I'm going to go back to the time machine and now choose future. And now I just pick a date. So if I wanted to pick something that would just show today's, well, let me see today's content and the one that publishes on July 1st. So then I'll pick July 2nd and English. And let's see if we're getting two pieces of content now whenever we go to Time Machine and we go to Scheduled Content Publishing, which was a page. So now I'm looking at my site in the future, even though this content over here on the left-hand side is not currently published at all, but in the future it will be published, so my time machine gives me the future view of that content published on my site. And so I can see what it's going to look like whenever I've got some promotion coming up for, you know, the holidays, whatever the case may be, and you can take a forward look and see what your site's going to look like in the future. Okay, looking in the future, so if I look at July 18th and I look in English, I wanted to make sure that after the 15th I could actually see both of these pieces of content. So, but here you can see if we choose a forward date that's beyond this published date and beyond this published date, I can see that here he is showing. Let me go ahead and make sure that this guy now, if we go after the 31st of July, these two should still show, but this one should disappear. So if I set this now to August 1st, and I go back to the time machine and that same page, so now he disappears and I see these two exactly the way that we should be seeing them based upon the dates that we set for the future publishing and unpublishing. So that is the future time machine, and that is how you can take a look at your site in the past and in the future, and set those up as even nightly processes, bring up a previous site as disaster recovery. So here, the next thing I wanted to show you is the link checker. So here, if I go to link checker, I've got some bad links that are already included in the starter, just to let everyone be able to kind of see an example of it. But let me create a new piece of content with a bad link. So let me actually add a new piece of content, or actually I could just step into that one. And the link checker only checks WYSIWYG fields on structures. They check all WYSIWYG fields on structures, but that is all we're checking. So I'm going to put in a bad link here, and I'm going to use my WYSIWYG to go ahead and add a hyperlink. And put HTTP and just bad link. And insert that, and I'm going to save and publish them. Okay, so now I come back to my link checker, and I want to run the link check now on generic content. That is the structure that I used to create that bad link just now. And I run my link check. It shows this is running in the background. It may take a few minutes to go ahead and see that link checker running. If you look on your log, you can see that the link checker is running, checking all bad links on WYSIWYG fields. And while he's running, I'm just going to show you how you can actually set up. All I did was go to the role CMS admin, and I added another tab over here. So just quickly showing you how to do that while the link checker is running. This is how you would set it up. So if I wanted to set up for a specific role in the system, I could click on CMS tabs, create a custom tab. I've already done it over here. And here in the tools, there is the job scheduler right here. So you add that and you name your your tab, whatever you want it to be, and you click save. You choose that as one of the tabs for your role, and you've got the job scheduler. I already did it for my admin role here, and I've already got a job that I created. But if we click new and we take a look at it, this is how you could set up the link checker to run nightly on all structures. And so I'd set up whatever job name, link checker, and give a little job description of what it's doing, and then there is the link checker job down here at the bottom, so I can click that, set up a cron expression to run it nightly, and what it'll do is whoever is the creator of the content, whoever's holding the content, it will check their links and send them emails and tell them if they've got bad links. And so you set up your cron expression, you run it nightly, a downtime. Obviously it's checking all of the WYSIWYGs and all of your content, so you can set that up as an automatic job, and I'll show you in a second how you can run it from workflow and automatically kick it back to someone who's creating those bad links. So if I refresh right now, I actually saw one on the mobile side as well. But here's today's relevant content, which expires 8/31, and here there's the bad link right there that I just created on that content. I can click on that piece of content right from the link checker and go straight into that piece of content to make the correction on the bad link. Okay, so that's running it right here from the link checker portlet. But you can actually set up a workflow and have it so that whenever you're passing between steps or you're executing an action on a workflow step, you can have it, instead of being something that's kind of managed after the fact, actually have it enforced in your workflow. So here, if I come to workflow schemes, I have set up an example of that, and I've just set up a really quick, brief workflow scheme example. It's just called check links, the workflow scheme. I've set up one workflow step called editing, and I've added one workflow action. And if we look at the editing workflow action, I have assigned it to a role contributor, so I'm going to log in a second as Joe Contributor, who has that role, and I've set it up as draft, so whenever you take that action, it's going to do these sub actions as well. It's going to notify the assignee, and it's going to do a link checker check. The way to add that sub action is just to click here on sub action for this particular step in your workflow, and you just click link checker, and that will add that. And I add that workflow sub action, that adds it down here, and it'll automatically happen whenever someone clicks on save draft. So I'm going to cancel the change, and then once you set up your own custom workflow, then the only other thing, just kind of like setting up the fields for the scheduled publishing, you have to configure that workflow to a structure. So I made a sample structure here called link check, and just to look at the properties here, the workflow scheme, I've set it to check links here. So that is what's controlling the content contribution on the link check structure. Okay. So I'm just going to cancel out of that. Now I'm going to log in as my limited user who would be using my structure and going through that workflow. So I'm going to log in as this guy named Joe Contributor, who obviously has the contributor role. Go to content. So if he tries to contribute new content that has a bad link, it's going to catch him right here before he actually, goes further or passes it on to somebody else, and it becomes their problem. This is content with a bad link, and I'll create once again some link that really doesn't go anywhere. insert it, and then I will try to, the workflow action where I have this configured is whenever he tries to save his draft. And then it automatically tells him, hey, this link that you're trying to save in this WYSIWYG is broken, so I'm not going to accept it. Fix your links, and then go ahead and save your content. So that is the way that you can actually have it set up for your content contributors, so that they actually can't create bad external links through that kind of a custom workflow action. The last thing I wanted to cover is the new navigation tool. Jason Smith already took a look at this briefly in last week's webinar on the new template designer, but I wanted to just take a quick look and make sure that everyone understood the example, understands the new navigation tool. Once again, there is documentation here on the external link checker. So if you look in our documentation site, external link checker, or just search for links or checker, it'll pop up. And also there's documentation on the doc site on the new navigation menus and the tooling. And basically you're using this new navtool.getNav, where the example that I'm using is just getting from the root, but you could pass it for a path and start deeper in, and it's showing you how to iterate over children in the path using velocity. And this way you can really have granular control of your menus. There is a tool right here where you can do nav.parent. So instead of drilling down to get the children, if you want to do nav.parent, you can actually work your way backwards. If you're in a crumb trail, you wanted to just sense where you are, and then back step, which if you keep going up, it'll eventually end in system host. And that's where you'd say if system host stop backtracking my crumb trail. There's all the tooling here to either dig down from wherever you start and dig down into the show on menu items. The active over here in the code, in the documentation, that is just simply bolding that link, that menu link, if it is the one that is active. So that's all in your menuing. You'll see which one you've clicked on. So if we come back here to I've set up a page here that is actually using that exact code, and it's just from the root, so it's going to see everything from the root of the site. And so I just set up a widget here using exactly that code that's in the documentation, so you can see everything from the root of the site. Now if I wanted to just say I wanted to start displaying a menu, and here you can see over here we're using the navigation as well, and the active is showing that we're right now, and you can see that the navigation tool is actually bolded, that's where we're clicked, that's what we're displaying right now, that's what's the active link. If I wanted to get in here and just show the navigation inside, I could step in and edit my widget. It's just using the same exact code that's right there on the documentation site. And instead of, I'll lock it for editing, let me expand this so you can see it. And if I just wanted to start out inside About Us, I can choose that as a beginning path and then iterating over the children as well. And so now I get a navigation which starts out farther down the line. And so this gives me the show on menu items, which I could go back and add another HTML page, and it would automatically list here and show the navigation. So you have a little more granular control with the navigation tool to go ahead and control the items that are in your navigation. So those are the features that were not covered last week. We wanted to make sure that we mention them since they are very important, very cool for 2.3. That brings us to a close on what I wanted to present. We will be posting this webinar on our website, and I'll be sending out links to everyone who registered. We just showed the time machine, scheduled publishing for the future, how to bring up a previously snapshotted time machine snapshot on an Apache server, run the link checker, ran the link checker from workflow, and briefly to discuss the new navigation tooling and where to find it in our doc and kind of how it works. A lot of exciting developments happening at Dotcms. We're releasing shortly Dotcms 2.5 version, which will feature push publishing from one server to the next. So look out for that webinar invitation in your email soon. Well, I hope that you enjoyed the webinar. I hope that kind of expands your view of how robust Dotcms 2.3 is.